Let's go.
Good morning, Ringside Wrestling. It is me, Nick Hausman, the managing editor of Wrestling Inc., back here in the saddle as I am every Friday, 2 p.m. Central on the Ringside Wrestling app for the latest episode of the WINCLY TV. And joined here as I am every Friday, it is our good friend, the executive editor, El Presidente of WrestlingInc.com, Raj Giri. Raj, welcome back to WINCLY TV.
Thanks again, Nick.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Right. There is no WINCLY TV without Raj. So thank you. But yeah, no, guys, this is the place to come every Friday, 2 p.m. Central, the Ringside Wrestling app. It's free to download. There's original programming here 7 nights a week on Ringside Wrestling, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, including Danger Zone, Fantasy Warfare 2, Game Night with Josh Matthews. You get Madison Rain on here, Petey Williams, many more. This is your place to be for pro wrestling if you're not going to WrestlingInc.com, of course. The big tease here going into the summer is we're going to get more live content here on the Ringside Wrestling app. So look forward to that. Look forward to joining you guys here every Friday as we do. This is going to be a big show today. Raj and I are going to jump right in to the top 5 stories of the week. But right after that, you're going to get another exclusive interview here right on the Ringside Wrestling app on WINCLY TV. Our own field correspondent, Andy Malnoski, back at WrestleCon 2019. Today, he is chatting with legendary pro wrestling ring announcer, the most dangerous ring announcer of all time, Gary Michael Capetta. A legend, Raj, a legend.
A legend, yeah. Always great to hear from Gary, so definitely check that out.
All right, well, let's get to it here. The top 5 stories of the week. First of all, the top story dropping just yesterday from a press release from WWE. Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff have been named WWE TV executive producers. No, this isn't 2004. This is 2019. Heyman's going to oversee Raw. Bischoff's going to oversee SmackDown. Bischoff's also going to be working directly with Fox executives as the Blue brand plans to move to Fox on Friday nights this October. Both are still going to report to Vince McMahon. This is a full-time role for both. There are no plans to bringing them on TV at this time. This one came out of nowhere, Raj. What is your take on these two names joining WWE TV Creative?
Out of nowhere. I guess it's been in the works for a little while. PW Insider reporting that they've been talking. Bischoff was probably more recent, I guess, with Heyman. It goes back until February when they started talking about it. It just out of nowhere. Heyman, has worked within the WWE system. He was an employee there before. He worked in creative. He was the head writer of SmackDown for a while, but heads with Stephanie a lot, and then kind of never had an official backstage role. And so it's kind of interesting he's being brought back in the fold. And Eric Bischoff is just out of nowhere. He never had a backstage role. We just ran an article, I think it was last week on Wrestling Inc. about Eric Bischoff talking about how he was never did anything with creative in WWE. So from never having a role backstage with WWE to being the director of Raw, it's interesting. It's interesting he didn't go to Triple H, who has been running NXT for years now, and going to Bischoff. So one of the most interesting moves I've seen in a long time. We got the XFL coming up. Obviously, Vince is trying to kind of spread the wings a little bit. He's going to have a lot more responsibility with the XFL debuting in January. So really interesting. I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see. But at least one of the problems with Raw and SmackDown is they're so similar right now. And, you'll see 2 out of 3 falls matches on Raw. You see them the next night on SmackDown. And they kind of bleed into each other. So as far as creating separate brands, we'll have to see, because ultimately Vince is still in charge, and ultimately things have to go his way.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is I wonder how much of this is just, I hate to say lip service, but, it doesn't have any bite right now to me. I'll believe it when I see it, when it comes to 2 definitive different creative products. Because like you brought up there, like it was mentioned by PW Insider, Paul Heyman's been backstage for many months now. He's been backstage with WWE for years now, to be honest, alongside Brock. He's had input. You've seen him in all the WWE 24/7 specials, the Chronicles. He's always in Gorilla there with Vince McMahon. So not a huge surprise here to hear that Paul is going to be put in this position. With Eric, though, he brings a different set of skills. I was talking to Jimmy Corderas yesterday on the WINCLY about this, the audio version, And he brought up how, Eric, say what you will about the creative side of Bischoff and the things he's done, but he did actually spend a lot of time negotiating, working with Turner executives in that role as you're transitioning here into Fox. It's not always creative issues that you're going to need somebody going back and forth, relaying, negotiating with. Eric could have some value in that area. What I wonder is, did these two men get put into these positions maybe with different roles in mind? Maybe just saying executive director, creative direction, all that. That's just kind of a blanket and umbrella term to mask what, may be not that big of a change for Paul, but a way to safely bring Eric into the mix here so that he can help with some of the other day-to-day executive duties for WWE as they roll into Fox.
Well, there was another report from PW Insider and they said that these are legitimate roles. Now we'll have to see once, and they had to be approved by the board of directors. So we'll have to see once things get started, how much power they're given, how much influence they're given. But according to that report, they are in charge. They are the head dogs of those respective shows.
So was Pritchard. So was Jeff Jarrett. So was everybody else. It's been the clown car of writers and other creative personalities that have been brought into WWE over the last 18 months. Bruce was supposed to be the one to get into Vince's ear and be able to get through to him, right? It really hasn't seemed to play out that way here in the past few months, No. So again, it's like, board of directors, great. Sure, they approved it all and all that. Time is only going to tell how much reign, how much of a leash Vince is going to give them. And I do wonder, is this going to play out? And if it doesn't play out necessarily where they do get a lot of bite, how long is it till they go back to the old trope of bringing these guys back onto TV? If you've established them here in this role, they're executives, they're backstage players, it does seem like it wouldn't be too much of an illogical step for the fans to watch them roll over to the characters that they were more familiar with from a decade or so ago.
Right. And Heyman's already on TV, and so it'd just be Bischoff. And, Bischoff, he does have some star power. And, I agree with you. I mean, how many times have we seen WWE saying they're going to shake things up creatively and things are going to change? I mean, they've done shakeups many times in the past. I mean, just December, they were talking about how, like, now the fans are the authority and everything's going to change and new matchups and everything, only to go back to the way it was within weeks. And time will tell if this is another case of that. If we go by history, it will be.
All right. Well, let's go to the second top story of the week here. With all of the criticisms raining down on WWE, low crowds for live events, lower pay-per-view numbers, there is one man who is proudly waving the WWE flag, and that is the Universal Champion Seth Rollins. He calls in the past week on Twitter WWE the best pro wrestling on the planet. He said, I argue you to find a better wrestler alive than somebody like Ricochet. Well, that's when Will Ospreay jumped in here, and he said, I'm alive. A subtweet that just says, I'm alive, Raj. That's all it was. Well, that set off a series of events here where Seth Rollins called him smaller than Ricochet. He offered to compare bank accounts with Will Ospreay here. And that's what Jericho had to jump in and remind Seth Rollins that Will Ospreay is taller than and bigger than he is. Rollins called WWE critics largely idiots with no clue. What do you think? What do you make of Seth Rollins snapping here and going on this tirade on Twitter?
Well, I have no problem with it. I mean, as someone's being a company guy, I mean, really, I feel like the criticism of WWE kind of came to a head this weekend. This week with Stomping Grounds, it had like the least buzz of any pay-per-view I can remember. Right. And just the crowd shots and Raw and SmackDown doing like their all-time low attendance figures. So it really came to a head. So Rollins' original tweet was, find me someone who can do this day in, day out, what I do. Right. And not Ricochet, and Ricochet came later. Sure. And Ospreay said, I'm here. And then all of a sudden it turned into this thing about who had more matches this year. Rollins' original tweet wasn't about who this year. It was just in general. To find holes in a tweet, I mean, come on, is that what we're going to be wasting our time on? But I mean, Rollins is probably, I mean, obviously he's the head guy right now, and to see all this criticism coming in, I'm sure it gets to him. And a lot of what he said sounded like Vince, the taking his ball and running home, which Rollins said in reference to Moxley. That's the exact term that Vince said when Steve Austin left in 2000. I believe it was 2002, might have been 2003, but that was the exact term they used. And so Seth being a corporate, sticking up for his company, I don't really see anything wrong with that, except when he's talking about people being idiots, but all the signs show that this is the case. The popularity is the lowest I can remember it, probably since 95, maybe even lower. The ratings were higher back then, but there's a lot of different factors with that. Pay-per-view buy rates. I mean, the number of people attending the shows, WrestleMania, is much higher now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the facts are there. I could see Seth, why he is upset. And, Ospreay, when Seth is sending out these fired tweets and Ospreay sends a cute tweet back, I mean, when there's a drunk, angry guy on the phone yelling, you don't go and say something funny to him. You just stay out of their way. So,
yeah, and that's the thing is it just became such a wash for me. This isn't really my cup of tea personally. I don't think it's a good look for Seth to really be going to these lengths. It doesn't really endear me at all to him, especially when you start doing the bank account stuff and, ripping on people that, arguably are all great performers. At one point, I honestly was reading all this stuff and I was like, did Vince steal Seth's phone? Is that what's going on here? Because this doesn't sound like Seth Rollins. And, it wasn't until he did the whatever Sports Illustrated Media podcast a couple days ago where I heard it in his own words and I heard the passion there. And it's like, I get where it's coming from. I don't know. I feel like there's maybe better ways to do it. He just kind of sounds a little, you're right. I mean, it came to a head. He sounds a little embittered about the situation. And it's, it's like selling a used car where you can tell one of the wheels isn't there. It seems a bit hollow. Because like you say, this isn't like we're calling out or whoever the critics are calling out or Moxley's calling out anything else that, everybody else is talking about right now. So much of this stuff is in the open. So I don't know. Just not my personal cup of tea. For handling it. I
had sent a tweet out like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, just asking for any wrestling fan that's been watching over the past 10 years, at least the past 10 years or longer, if they really believe that the last 2 years have been the best, have been the most entertaining for them, have been the best, quality wise. And just to let me know why, I'm just curious. And not one person said that it was. I mean, there were different people saying, well, the talent's better and things like that. But no one said that the actual product is better right now.
Well, let's get back to the top stories of the Wink. Number 3 here is about how WWE is trying to get back on the tracks here. Obviously, we've had these creative mixed up changes made backstage, but we've also started to see some creative changes in the ring. A big one here happened at the end of Stomping Grounds. Baron Corbin got to pick the guest referee for his Universal title match against Seth Rollins. He picked Lacey Evans, who had lost to Seth's girlfriend, Becky Lynch, earlier in the night. This has led to what is going to be Corbin and Lacey teaming up to take on Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch at Extreme Rules in a winner-take-all match. Oh, the heat that will rain down going into SummerSlam if we've got Corbin and Lacey on top. What do you think of what's going on here?
I just think the fans don't care about this program at all with Seth and Corbin, and they're done with Lacey and Becky. Becky beat her, Lacey twice. Seth beat Baron twice. The fans don't care about this. I mean, if you're seeing, I mean, the proof is there. You're seeing the record low attendance that's built around this feud, and the record low interest in Stomping Grounds in a pay-per-view that's headlined by that match. Get away from it. Move on to something else. I know, you don't want to move on to your SummerSlam plans quite yet, but move on to something else, like you did with Kofi with Samoa Joe, which I have my qualms about that. Not that Samoa Joe shouldn't be in the world title picture, but give him some wins first because he hasn't won a match on TV since WrestleMania. Yeah. But anyway, I just think it's just a big problem with what's wrong. It's not giving fans what they want and just feeling like this is what they want.
Are they playing with fire here with the Becky character? Because Becky has been so hot on her own, single act, tearing through the women's division. I was watching this the other night with my girlfriend, and as soon as she started what was playing out, she said, I hate this. Now Becky's just the girlfriend, right? And before she was like this independent ass kicker type. I don't know if they're playing with fire here, risking putting Becky in this position, because I know they went out of their way to, Becky saved Seth here. He should thank her. I don't know if they can continue to tell that story forever, and you don't get to go back from this. Now everybody knows they're a couple. This is the new path.
Yeah, I think it waters them both down. And I just think if you look at how Becky was booked after SummerSlam last year, they were trying to book her as a heel, and she was the hottest babyface. Right. And she was just did not care, just edgy. And then you look at, just compare like a promo of hers from September to a promo of hers from March or, last week, and just see the difference. I mean, she's getting watered down, I feel like, every week. And this is not going to help. I think it's going to hurt. So
Do you think the plan here may be put the belts on Corbin and Lacey so that these two can work together to take them back at SummerSlam in August?
I don't think so. I think that would be a huge mistake. I mean, look, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's clear Vince likes Corbin and Vince likes Lacey, right? So it's definitely not impossible, but I just think, oh man.
I always go back to, because I don't really know. I don't know if we know the rules here quite yet. If it's intergender mixed tag, where the men have to tag.
It's mixed tag.
It's mixed tag. Okay, so we're not going to get like Corbin pinning Becky or something like that.
No.
But I always, in my head, it's like I go back to that match from like 12 years ago where Sheamus won the world title by putting John Cena through a table, and and everyone was like, "There's no way they would ever put the title on Sheamus. Why would you do that?" And
right.
Same thing with Jinder. There's no way they would ever do that. Well, they did it. So if they've gone this far with Corbin, they had him retire Kurt Angle at WrestleMania just 2 months ago. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all that they put the title on these two.
It's not out of the realm of possibility at all, but I don't see it happening. One thing they could do is have Corbin and Lacey win. They win both belts. Brock cashes in, beats Corbin, and
sure.
You got Brock as Universal Champion, and then Lacey as a Women's Champion. But I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see.
Yeah, well, on to the fourth top story of the week. The Wrestling Observer reported WWE no longer allowing wrestling during commercials. This has kind of been playing out over the last week and a half. Vince held a meeting making the announcement. There have been multiple, like you brought up earlier, 2 out of 3 falls matches, 2 alone just this past Tuesday night on SmackDown. There's a lot of people backstage caught off guard by this. A lot of people questioning how long this can last. I'm in the how long can this last category. These 2 out of 3 falls, about brutal, man. Short matches here, pinning guys 2-3 times in a short period of time. What do you think of this call here to cut the wrestling from commercials?
In some ways, I liked it. Like, I thought Raw this past Monday night moved faster than usual. I thought it was the fastest paced Raw I've seen in forever. Yeah. But then, to your point, when they want the wrestlers to stick around for the next segment, that's where it gets awkward. It's not like they just move on to another match. They're having them stick around with either a 2 out of 3 fall stipulation or elimination match where the match kind of stops. Then they go to a commercial and it starts again. Man, just have another match and, have the main event go through a commercial break. I mean, they used to do that, in the Attitude Era where the matches never went through the commercial. It was one segment, boom, you move on, next segment. And I just think that's more organic. But like I thought SmackDown this past Tuesday night was just so awkward with the way they were doing it.
You're right. I think the Raw clicked well. I don't know why that is. I thought Raw clicked well and SmackDown seemed weird. So
same here.
And I don't know. And that's, again, it's like consistency wise, where do you go with this? The other thing that in the back of my head, I thought was, is this an opening here for AEW? Where if WWE is going to become the company of these gimmick matches and these shorter bouts or whatever, is this going to give AEW, which looks to be a workhorse company, an opening here to say, we're the wrestling company. You're going to get longer matches with us. You're going to get more to invest in here if you come over to our product.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, there's so much here that WWE is doing that AEW could just simply not do. Right. And fans will find it refreshing. We'll have to wait and see. This is one of those things. I don't know how long it's going to last. We saw the wild card rule was supposed to be 4 people, from 4 individuals from each brand that could switch each week. That lasted, I don't even know if it lasted a week before that went kaput. They were going to make the 3rd hour of Raw darker and dim the lights. They did that for 2 weeks. So they introduced that electric chair segment that didn't last past the first week. So it's very easy to see them finding this to be too much of a pain and then just dropping it altogether.
All right. Well, last top story of the week here, an update on a big WWE superstar, a beloved WWE superstar. The Observer reporting the Bulgarian brute Rusev, his WWE contract is expiring soon. It would not be very surprising if he left because he's been pretty vocally upset on social media for months now. At the same time as Rusev looks like he could maybe be leaving, we also got the news from Pro Wrestling Sheet that Jinder Mahal has apparently re-signed for 5 years here. So 2 talents, kind of similar spots on the card, one deciding to stay, one looking to leave. What would you make of Rusev becoming a free agent here?
I mean, there was a time when we thought Mike and Maria Kanellis were going to leave when their contracts were up, and then they got a huge deal and signed for 5 years. So you don't know until the time comes. But, Rusev, it's got to be frustrating for him because, that Rusev Day thing was so over for a while. And instead of going with it and just trying it out, and yes, I know the argument that the chant is over, not the character, but you can try to transform that to the character and, and go with it. And and blend it in. But they didn't do that. They just kind of tried to drown it out, and they felt like Rusev Day wasn't what in their plan, so we're going to kill it, and they did. It's got to be frustrating for him. His merch sales suffer. He was finally getting something, and they just put a kibosh on it. So, I mean, I can see him. Rusev is a really funny guy. I mean, people were asking me like where I could see him, and look, his sense of humor fits very well with that, being the elite style, with that very witty, dry wit. He's just a funny dude. But who knows? Again, like I said, with the Canellises, they renewed, and we'll just see when push comes to shove.
Yeah, AEW is always the other big dog in the room, but New Japan Pro Wrestling has been a great spot. Even Moxley right now, he's a sitting title holder over in New Japan right now. I could see Rusev getting along over there. A lot of big men, very physical style, very in line with the way that he works. Ring of Honor, they're looking for new talent right now to grab people. If they're willing to put up some money, Rusev's definitely somebody that's got a big fan base, could bring a lot of value there. Not really sure what the Impact situation looks like. Haven't heard the best stories backstage right now about some of the offers that talent's been getting, but he's a much different story here. That's the great thing that's so nice about this time period is people like Rusev, and even we don't really know Lana's deal here. If hers is up at the same time, you could have a package deal out on the market. So many places you could put them, so much value for so many different companies in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our top 5 stories of the week, but we are not done yet. Sit back, relax. We're going to go out into the field to WrestleCon 2019 as our field correspondent, Andy Malnaski, talks to legendary pro wrestling ring announcer, Gary Michael Capetta.
It is WrestleCon here in New York City with the legendary voice of wrestling, Gary Michael Capetta, ring announcer, WCW, Mid-Atlantic, you name it, WWE. I mean, you've been everywhere across the globe. Talk to us right now.
You can't get away from me, you know what I mean? No matter how hard you try, you go on YouTube, AWA, NWA, Ring of Honor, you can't, I'm the curse. I'm the curse of wrestling, I guess.
No, it's certainly a blessing in many ways. And I know that your voice, when you would ring announce competitors out to the ring, it really captured people. And I think that's so important for being an announcer. And that's what we try to learn in our craft as well.
You know what the secret is? If you're a fan, that comes through. You can't fake that. So that when I was giving you a rousing introduction of whichever wrestler it was because I was excited.
Right.
I've always been a fan, and that's the secret sauce.
Yeah. How did you get started in ring announcing?
I had no intention, never had a public speaking course, never had any kind of announcing course. They didn't have an announcer one night. I volunteered, and that was it.
Wow.
And
so the rest is history, right?
Yeah, I mean, 40 years later, here we are.
Right. And you've done so many matches. Your voice is on so many moments in wrestling. For whether it was a Ric Flair match, a Steamboat Classic. What was it? If you look back now, what would you think is that pinnacle moment for you to describe this?
I break it down to decades because for decades I've been involved. One was when I was with the WWF. It was Superstar Billy Graham when he was the champion, and Bruno Sammartino was coming back for his title.
In the 70s.
Yes, I was the house announcer for the WWF in Philadelphia at the Spectrum. 3 months in a row, 19,500 people, sold out. That was, like a series of 3 matches. Move into the 89-90, and it was the Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, 3 matches in Chicago, in Nashville, and in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I knew at the time you could just feel the importance of that. And one of the nights, I guess it was the last one in Nashville. I don't know whether you remember, but there were the 3 judges.
Yep.
Pat O'Connor, Terry Funk, Lou Thez. I mean, the greats,
There.
So it was, so those are the 2 series of matches that I always point to.
And, we mentioned just a second ago, being a former Pro Wrestling Illustrated freelancer and intern myself, your personalized copy of the Stu Sachs was actually given to me as a gift, which was awesome because they'd already read it, and I had a chance to go through that. And when you write books and look back on your story, and you look where wrestling is today, sports entertainment. What's changed the most, you think?
Well, it depends on which promotion we're talking about. We're so fortunate today that we have so many different alternatives. If you're talking about WWE, they're looking for a different feel. They're looking for more of a festival experience, not so much a dirty kind of drag down kind of match.
Right.
Even though, you know, they talk that way. If you go to see one of their live shows, half of the show is the guys and gals taking selfies on the way to the ring, you know, and then wrestling is like a little bit of it. They don't even announce the main events or the matches in advance. So it's just a whole different feel. Nobody does what they do better than they do. But, you know, there are different Ring of Honor, which I had done the backstage interviewing for. It's more of my style of wrestling. It harkens, even though it's really today and really current and really cool, they stick with the tradition of wrestling, and wrestling holds. And yeah,
That's important. Obviously, it's so important. The nostalgia, the classics, everything like that.
It depends on what you're looking for. I mean, whatever you're looking for, it's out there. And I always say that the stars of tomorrow are in the indies. So it's important for all of us to support independent wrestling.
Right on. Gary Michael Capetta, and I know Howard Finkel is certainly one of the great announcers, and his health has been tough lately.
My regards. Howard is a wonderful, wonderful man, and my regards to him. I hope he stays strong.
Yeah, you two guys, your voices really etched in the fabric of time. Gary Michael Capetta, right here in New York City. Any final thoughts for everybody watching on WrestlingInc.com?
Thanks so much, you know, for all the support through the years, even in my post full-time announcing career. I love coming to these kinds of conventions, talking to people from all over the world, and then sharing a little bit of what the wrestling that I was involved in meant to them. That just fills my heart.
Well, Gary, thank you so much for taking the time for us. Thank you. Gary Michael Capetta, the voice of wrestling, WrestlingInc.com. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Raj, for talking the top 5 stories of the week with me at the top of the show. Thank you to Andy for going out to WrestleCon, getting that great interview with Gary Michael Capetta. And thank you all so much for tuning in. If you like this show, of course, you got to download. You've already done it. You're watching the show, Ringside Wrestling app. You got to go tell a friend they got to download the Ringside Wrestling app. It's free to download. 2 p.m. Central every Friday. Me and Raj, we're back here. Unless one of us is gone, then we have a very suitable replacement, but always good content here on WINCLY TV. You can also go over to iTunes, Wrestling Inc. Audio, 5-star ratings, nice comments, always appreciated. We will be in Daytona Beach. Myself, Michael Weissman, covering Fyter Fest this Saturday. We're also going to have live coverage on the site. We're also going to have a post show over on our YouTube channel. That audio then gets pulled over to our iTunes channel. You can find it in both places. It's wonderful. Get it in right there. And, of course, you're going to have Ring of Honor Best in the World coverage. That is tonight on the site. You're going to get the coverage of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Melbourne show tomorrow afternoon on the site. It just never stops. It's getting too busy, Raj.
It is, man. Just think about July 13th. You got WWE now with Evolve, and then you got Fight for the Fallen, AEW. New Japan G1 will be happening that day. So it's just getting nutty.
Yeah, it is getting insane. So we are the place to stay tuned to, WrestlingInc.com. We are the most traffic website on the planet for pro wrestling news, is because we know what you want. So stick with us. Stay tuned. Thank you so much. Raj, you want to plug, promote, put over where people can find you on the internet?
Yeah, find me on Twitter, RajGary303.
Wonderful. I'm at Wink Rebel over on Twitter. Thanks again for tuning in. And remember, if you winked, you didn't miss it.